Memento and Irreversible are two movies that are infamous for their reverse story structure. Over the years, both have been revisited and discussed. Memento especially has been popular for a while, since it's the movie that was a breakthrough for Christopher Nolan. He may have become a household name through the Dark Knight trilogy, but way before Batman Begins, Memento was the movie that primarily established him as a promising director. Now, I haven't seen any other movies from director of Irreversible, so I can't say much on that regard. But based on the movie that I have seen, it's not a surprise why he is a much more acquired taste. Irreversible contains some pretty graphic scenes, whether in a violent manner or sexual. So here's your disclaimer. If you're turned off by topics such as violence and sex, you may not want to proceed, since it's a pretty big part of Irreversible. Having said that, let's get started. The story for both these movies are very similar. They're both revenge stories that follow characters who are looking for the person who assaulted their loved ones. Both stories end in a somber note that gives the very beginning a different meaning. Both movies even begin with the characters killing the wrong person. Both stories are told in reverse, with each transition from one scene to other being showcased using a framework. In Memento, we get black and white flashbacks that intercut with the main storyline, so it's clear which timeline are we watching. In Irreversible, the camera spins around to establish the same. Personally, I prefer the Memento story structure more, since it fits the character more organically. The whole reason for the reverse story structure is because of Leonard's amnesia. The filmmakers wanted the audience to feel exactly like Leonard, and in my opinion, they nailed it. The only other time I've felt such a connection with the character's mind in a movie is in The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins. The flashbacks explain Leonard's condition, using Samuel Jenkins as an example, all the while contributing to the story. It also helps all the plot twists that the movie has, from Leonard's wife actually having survived the assault, to Teddy not being the killer and just some sleazy cop using Leonard's condition to bag in some extra cash on the side, to the reveal that every one of the characters is manipulating Leonard, including Leonard himself. There are quite a few twists. Irreversible, in comparison, has a lot less going for it in terms of storylines. It doesn't even have an organic reason to be told in reverse. The way the stories are told is also very different. Memento mixes art and entertainment together, and it makes for a great psychological mystery thriller. Irreversible leans heavily on the art side, and to its credit, it works. Irreversible has a very different approach to the revenge story. It shows us the graphic assault for several minutes, and it's cleverly paced in the middle of the movie to work as the bridge between the two halves of this movie. The first half is very different from the second one, to the point they feel like two separate films. The second half is more lighthearted, wholesome yet melancholic and colorful. The first half, on the other hand, is dark, bleak, bloody, and full of adrenaline. The chaos of the movie is best captured through the camera angles. The movie starts with so much shaky cam that for a second I thought it was a handheld movie like those Paranormal Activity movies. Then as the movie continues, the camera keeps moving and it's nauseating. The most noticeable time that the camera gets stable is in the middle, when we get to Alex and her point of view. The camera before this was so chaotic that when a shot finally stays still, it's a relief, only to then have Alex brutally assaulted for the entire duration of the shot. This scene is probably the scene that this movie is most remembered for, and it's not hard to see why. This is widely considered as one of the most brutal assault scenes ever filmed, and hats off to the actors for pulling it off in a single long take. After the assault, the camera is much more stable now. The tone is also changed, and by the end, when we find out that Alex is pregnant, the moment is both wholesome and sad at the same time. Wholesome because of how happy this moment itself is, but also sad because we know how this is going to end for her and her partner. Due to how well executed the assault scene was, I every now and then compare it with the other infamous assault scene, the one in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That movie's assault scene may not have the duration of Irreversible, but it felt just as realistic. Then there's a scene where some guy just walks in on them during the assault, but instead of helping her, he leaves. It's not like he witnessed someone hit her and then run away. At least in that kind of scenario, it takes people some time to process. Here, the man was literally on top of her, and yet this person just left. Having said that, I'm not sure if we can judge him, since he could be under the influence himself, for all we know. I mean, this movie does have some pretty messed up people in it. Throughout the movie, people are shown taking drugs in public, and there are several prostitutes openly displaying themselves on the streets. Hell, the movie even starts with a naked man talking about the time he had sex with his daughter, and the other person barely has a reaction to it. In a place like this, can you really expect people to do the decent thing? The movie also has some callbacks from to the
Bouge pas, je vais prendre le cul.
These moments really mix the otherwise bright moments with dark undertones. While Memento has some emotional moments of its own, the main focus is more on the thriller aspects, which works well for the story. The suspense and all that build-up makes the movie really engaging and rewatchable. Not to mention, Memento also has some hilarious scenes.
Sorry. Oh, wait. Where am I? Somebody's bedroom. Oh, must be her room. But who's she?
Did you sleep okay?
Yeah. You? Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, I'm chasing this guy. No, he's chasing me.
When you think about it, both movies have a basic cookie-cutter revenge plot, but due to their creativity, both stand out from the crowd. For all the similarities these movies have, they can't be any different in execution. Irreversible is very straightforward with its narrative, and each scene following the other immediately, while Memento has so much more going on, especially with the added subplot of Samuel Jenkins. While Irreversible tries to traumatize you, Memento is there to entertain you. Both movies are memorable in their own right, but if I have to pick one, I'd have to go with Memento. Despite having a more packed structure, Memento is easier to digest, whilst Irreversible at times felt too long of a movie. There are scenes that don't really serve any purpose or could have been condensed into a shorter time. For example, there are two scenes in the beginning that could have easily been condensed into one. The scene with the driver and the one at the restaurant. Both establish that the characters are looking for a club and that they are very angry and upset. We didn't need both scenes for it. One would have been enough. They both convey the same thing anyway. Then there is the scene where the characters are trying to get some information out of a prostitute by threatening her. The whole scene felt so long, and it felt like they were just trying to add in some extra manufactured conflict at the end by pulling out a knife on her. Also, later on in the movie, the whole scene where all they did was talk about sex felt very dragged out to me. By comparison, Memento had a much faster and tighter pace, despite being the longer movie. Not only that, but each scene came and went with just the right duration. In Irreversible, however, several scenes overstay their welcome, especially in the second half. The characters talking gives the audience a break from all the intense things, but at the same time, the conversations last for too long in my opinion. The characters talk in the elevator, the train, the metro, and at the party. I felt like they could have combined all four of those into one, maybe two scenes. Then we'll get directly to the pregnant reveal in the next scene. If anything, Irreversible could have easily been 10 to 20 minutes shorter by removing, if not replacing, the filler scenes. Most scenes in Irreversible are focused on the characters than on the plot, while Memento finds the perfect balance by having almost all of its scenes serve both the plot and the characters equally. So the movie with the better execution of the story is Memento. Leonard is an unreliable narrator and our anchor to the story. We are in his point of view and we stay there for the whole duration of the movie. Irreversible, on the other hand, bounces between multiple characters to show their side of the events. There are three main characters in Irreversible, and all three of them have their own distinctive personality. The whole story takes place within a night, yet it feels much longer due to the revelations the characters go through. Alex is a woman who's worried about her future. She finds out she's pregnant, and throughout her interactions, it feels like she's not sure how to handle the news. She spaces out during conversations and is very overwhelmed by her partner. Speaking of whom, her partner is the most charismatic character of the main trio. Having said that, he is not a good guy himself. He is openly cheating on his partner with other women at a party that they're both attending. He's doing drugs, he's immature, and as we find out early on in the movie, he also has some anger issues that don't help the situation. Granted, he is going through a lot, and the drugs in his system probably aren't helping him either. Despite that, however, it's hard to deny the fact that he just makes every situation worse. Like when they were questioning the prostitute and he pulls out a knife out of nowhere to threaten her. The actor portraying him does a fantastic job, by the way. Then we have Pierre. This character was the most surprising of them all. He brutally smashes a guy's skull with a fire extinguisher in the very beginning of the movie. He is established as a silent badass. Only, as we later find out, he is very much a pushover. He only started pushing back when someone he cared for got hurt. If only he had killed the right person. All three characters are memorable in their own way, but I personally found Alex to be the most interesting. I may be wrong, but I think Alex and her character pretty much what sums up one of the major themes of the story. Now, I'm not sure if this theme is in the movie intentionally or not, but this is what I believed the purpose of her storyline was. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments, which I'm pretty sure many will. Alex has a very weird relationship with the other two characters. Before her assault, the movie is pretty much a dark thriller with mystery and great build-up. But after the assault, the movie's tone turns too bright and even resembles a sitcom type situation where both men are talking about their sexual history with her. I'm also not sure if it's a cultural thing or if they're in an open relationship, since her partner is kissing multiple women and she herself is grinding over her ex in public. After that, every scene of hers, one way or other, revolves around sex. In each scene she's in, she's either naked, wearing something revealing, or openly talking about her sexual history with the other two leads, and even comparing them. Yet, when it comes to the only sex she has on screen, she is brutally assaulted and traumatized. There is no hint of any consent here, and that's where the theme of her character comes in. I think the message was that even though she may dress in a promiscuous manner or talk about such things openly in public, it does not mean that she'll just do it with anyone. The fact that she is the only major female character in the movie further demonstrates the theme, which is consent. To further emphasize the theme, the man who violates her is not your typical ugly creep. He is decent looking himself, but the way he carries himself makes him despicable. This character really feels like a representation of all those people who blame others for not liking them and take out their aggression in unhealthy and harmful ways, whether it's through substance abuse or violent outbursts. I'm aware that I may be reading a bit too much into this, but I'm just stating what I personally saw on screen, or at least how I personally understood it. When these two characters cross paths, her promiscuous appearance gives him the wrong idea, and when she rejects his advances, he can't handle it. Given his possibly drugged up nature, along with the revealing dress Alex was wearing, he tries to take what he thinks is her openly selling herself, but when he is denied, he gets angry and takes her by force. Between all this, the movie is also asking us questions like, if a prostitute is raped, is it that big of a deal? Alex may not have been a prostitute, but is it that hard to see why the man mistook her for one? I know people will probably be upset at me for addressing her dress code as promiscuous, but consider this. In this movie, we see actual prostitutes have layers of clothing on them compared to Alex. Even in that one scene that she's covered herself, all the characters do is talk about sex. Not only that, the man who assaults her refers to her as a whore throughout the scene, and he is not the only one. Even before we see Alex's character, we're introduced to her situation by someone in the background stating a whore got raped. So yeah, that is what I think is the theme of her character, and by and large, the story. The importance of consent and the way individuals carry themselves. She did not deserve the trauma that was pushed upon her, and it's especially sad that the abuser did not get his comeuppance in the movie. His actions caused a broken arm, a traumatized woman, and a man who spent years of his life in prison. All the while, he moves on and possibly poisons other parts of society. In all honesty, I'm not sure if he even understands what is done. Either that or he simply doesn't care. A man is brutally murdered in front of him, and yet he smiles. Despite the limited scenes he's in, this character was truly disgusting. As for the characters in Memento, Leonard is the protagonist of the story. He is smart, resourceful, and very good at improvising. He makes it his mission to find the person who he believes to have killed his wife. Only, as we later find out, his wife actually survived the attack in which he thinks she died. Leonard is incapable of making any new memories since the attack, so he's forgotten the moments he shared with his wife, including their last moments. It makes him a rather tragic character who keeps reciting the only moments he remembers of his wife, the only ones he could. He wants to find and kill the person who wronged him, but he will not remember if he ever caught the person and exacted his revenge. His goal throughout the movie is to avenge his wife, but unfortunately, he's also the one who actually killed her. He is endlessly searching for a person who may not even exist anymore. His whole life is a lie, and he keeps searching for the truth in it. But when he is confronted with the truth, he can't handle it and bends it to his liking. It makes Leonard such a fascinating character, and one of the best characters in Christopher Nolan's filmography. Revenge is one of the core themes in both movies, and I think that Leonard embodies the consequences of it more than anyone in Irreversible. A broken arm is bad, but what Leonard goes through is far worse. The only other time I've seen a character destroy himself in his quest for vengeance is in I Saw the Devil. They don't realize how far they've come from the character they used to be until it's too late. Next up, we have side characters like Teddy and Natalie. Both characters seem like friends on the surface, but as we see later on, they're both manipulating Leonard and using him however they please. They're playing chess and Leonard is the pawn. Teddy uses him to make a drug deal and get himself some dirty money, while Natalie uses him to attack some guy named Doug. I like how we never find out why exactly Natalie wanted Doug to be attacked. Just like Leonard, we're also left clueless. Then there's one of my favorite moments from the movie. The whole scene where she mocks Leonard's condition along with his wife and baits him to hit her. her. It had my jaw on the floor. She even makes sure to take all the pen and pencils with her beforehand and then wait in the car for him to forget the whole ordeal. This was such a brilliant scene. I haven't seen Carrie Ann Moss in that many movies, but she was awesome in this one. Teddy was also a very charismatic character, and at first I didn't even realize that he was the same actor who played Cypher in The Matrix. Trinity and Cypher both in the same movie, and both using Leonard's amnesia for their own benefit. Only it backfires for Teddy. He wasn't all that innocent by any means, but he also wasn't deserving of the death he got. He was a greedy cop, but it's implied that he may also have helped Leonard in the past to hunt the people he's been looking for all this time. Every major character in both these movies is memorable and has a lot going on for them. From Leonard missing his wife and remembering her memories to the realization that there were probably more moments they shared as a couple that sadly never turned into memories. The endless loop of grief, vengeance, and confusion that Leonard goes through every day made him such a sympathetic character to me. I liked the characters in Irreversible too, but none of them stood out to me as well as Leonard did. Characters in Irreversible are fleshed out well, but the tragedy of Leonard and his complex relationship with deceiving two-faced characters like Natalie and Teddy make for a unique experience that few character interactions can create. Winner, Memento. Both movies get better and better with each rewatch, but I don't think I'll be rewatching Irreversible as much. Not because it's disturbing. As someone who's read multiple Karen Slaughter books, the subject matter in these movies isn't all that graphic to me. Hell, my own book has more disturbing things in it than Irreversible. The reason for me to not rewatch Irreversible as much is because of the way it's made. The way the movie is shot showcases the chaos of the situation well, but it's also a headache to sit through. The constant camera movements are hard to watch and nauseating. It's not like the camera moves just a little. Some of the shots feel like the cameraman was straight up dancing around the characters while filming. That's how unstable it is. Add to that, the flashy lights don't help matters. Granted, this issue is mostly for the first half of the movie, but it was still so annoying. Add to that, the overdrawn scenes in the later half of the movie didn't help improve the pacing by much. Memento in comparison is far easier to rewatch. Not to mention, Memento is just overall a denser movie. There are so many more moving parts in Memento that are so easy to overlook. The characters, the pacing, the dialogue, and especially the intercutting of two separate timelines that merge together at the climax. All these things make the movie so engrossing and thought-provoking. It's time for the scores. Memento gets a 9 out of 10 and Irreversible gets a 7 out of 10. Irreversible had a great idea and a story to match it, but the execution kept being a hit or miss for me. They had me captivated in one scene, only to bore me in the next. Memento, on the other hand, had no such problems. It kept me hooked throughout the movie. Every twist, turn, reveal had me at the edge of my seat, whereas in Irreversible, I was at the edge of my seat for 2, maybe 3 scenes. The rest I was mostly slouching. All in all, both movies have their quirks, but for me, Memento was by far the better movie, and hence the winner of this versus video. Let me know what other movies you'd like for me to compare. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Before I go, my debut novel, New Address, is linked below in the description, and I will also leave a link along with the blurb in the comments as well. Please do check it out if you're interested in a dark, disturbing psychological thriller. That's it for now, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.